everybody. Grant Miller here. Miami Community News. It's election time. We got Judge Spencer. Is that the easiest way to call you, right?
That's great. Judge Spencer Eig, but Judge Spencer is how I like to introduce myself.
Right. You've been a judge for how many years?
Over 20 years.
It's incredible. The era that you were a judge. There's so many things have changed in Dade County. But let's find out a little bit about you before we talk about the judgeship. You're born in New York.
I was born in New York, in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. What elementary school did you go to?
I don't know. It had a number. It was PS something. You walked up a hill. They used to inspect our fingernails each day.
Really?
Lined up.
Why?
It was old school.
Okay. Do you have a favorite teacher from elementary school?
I like Mrs. Stoloff. She was big talker, used big words. I learned a lot of
second grade. You said second grade?
Yeah, that was in second grade.
My favorite. I'm 69. My favorite was Mrs. Smith. So that was 1967. Okay. Junior high. Who's your favorite teacher?
I don't even remember.
High school.
Oh, in high school, we had a good high school, and we had a lot of new teachers who had been there forever, and Mr. Kent, he had a hard to pronounce Norwegian name, Mr. Kanawel.
Okay.
And he had crew cut, like flat top crew cut.
Like a Marine?
Yeah, like a Marine.
You went to Virginia?
I went to the University of Virginia. The summer, I was in New York City the summer before I was going to college, and I was a bicycle messenger, and the taxis were always trying to run me off the road. And the city, Son of Sam, was going around killing people. So I said to myself, I got to get out of here. I want to go to college in the woods. And so I went to the University of Virginia in a small town.
What city is that in?
It's called Charlottesville, Virginia.
And then you went to law school where?
Well, I went to the University of Georgia, but don't hold that against me. I've repented. After my son went to the University of Florida, I repented of my bulldogness.
So you went from New York to Athens.
Yes, I did.
It's a little quiet town.
Little quiet town.
Until football.
Football game day is something out of control. A lot of good music in Athens at that time. I remember the band REM were broke starting out musicians. I was in some cafe, and they couldn't come up with the money to pay for their coffee. And my legal research and writing professor helped them pro bono, and then when they became a huge hit, he became big, and they named part of the law school after him.
Wow. What year was that?
Like in 1985, I graduated.
So that was good, from law school.
Yeah.
They had good football then.
They had Herschel Walker.
That is an incredible specimen of a person, right? He was just incredible. All right, so let's you finished law school. Where'd you go from there?
I went to Washington, D.C. I worked in the U.S. government, had a lot of fascinating experiences. I worked in the U.S. Department of Justice. I worked in the Office of the Presidential Transition when President George H.W. Bush came into office, and afterwards in his White House.
So how'd you end up in Miami?
Well, after the White House, I was in the Justice Department, and the Justice Department sent me down as a federal prosecutor to clean up New Orleans, Louisiana. So that took me about 3 years. I was 3 years in New Orleans. Now, it's clean as a whistle. And then they sent me to Miami, and 30-odd years later, I'm still here.
Okay, so do you remember the first place you lived when you moved to Miami?
I did. I lived in South Beach.
That was in 89.
Yeah, that was in mid-90s, mid-94, I guess. And
it still wasn't, it's not like it is now.
Well, it isn't. It was quieter. Lincoln Road was quiet, and, but it was pretty lively still.
Okay, so you come to Miami, and what did you do your first job here?
I was in the U.S. Department of Justice, and I got involved a little bit in local, as appointed as a board member. I was on the county zoning appeals board, and I really got into it. I loved it as soon as I came here.
All right, so then you got that. So how did you become a judge, start off?
Well, I was an attorney for a while. I left the U.S. Department of Justice. I had a private practice. just about the first case I ever had in private practice. I represented the Cuban rafter child, Elian Gonzalez, and his Miami relatives. And that obviously turned into a huge
so
international case.
We could talk about that for days. So you're the attorney representing the child
Yes.
pro bono,
Yes, it was.
and you worked with Armando Gutierrez.
Yes, I did. Armando had met me earlier, and he knew that I had worked in the government and in the White House, and that I might know things about the situation. So, Elian came out of the water on Thanksgiving Day, a Thursday. And I was following the story on TV, but I didn't have any real concept that it had anything personal to do with me. And then Armando called me to come over, and on Sunday
To that
little house in Little Havana. At this time, at the very beginning, I was the first attorney that had spoken to them. We didn't know it was going to turn into an international incident. It was pretty wild in there.
why would you think it'd be an international? Nobody thought it. It's just the kid came here and wow.
Right.
This is a great. I'm more fascinated because I'm a big fan of Armando. We've been friends for 40 some odd years. So talk about the case.
So when I first arrived there, the house is like it looks later on.
It's about
on
this
TV.
size.
It's about this size. There was about 30, 40 neighbors in there. ABC News had set up a full-size studio camera
Inside.
Not like this smaller camera, like a big old school camera.
In the 90s, the cameras were giant.
Right. And Marislaisis Gonzalez, Elian's cousin, who was taking care of him, was still washing heads in the kitchen sink. She was doing her hair.
She's a
hairdresser. She was doing that right there in the kitchen sink. So that was on Sunday. On Monday, Fidel Castro gets involved and starts demanding the return of the child. So it took off from there into a...
Did you speak Spanish at the time?
No, not so much. Some Spanish.
But now that year you learned a lot.
I did learn a lot. And, just the multicultural life of Miami. It's great. And so I've learned to speak Spanish and enjoy the whole culture.
Well, that must have been a huge challenge, the whole process.
It was a huge challenge. This was...
Did you have hair then?
I had a lot. I had a long beard. I had a beard and not too much hair.
Okay.
More hair than now.
But, I remember it like it was yesterday. And the struggle of parenthood, who has rights. That was a case law, right?
People think of it like maybe it was a custody battle between the mother and the father, but it wasn't. The relatives that Elian was with here were not his mother's relatives, his mother who had died on the way over trying to bring him to freedom and safety in America. The relatives that he had were his father's relatives. So it was a battle between his father, with Fidel Castro pulling that string, and his father's brother here trying to take care and protect the child.
Wow. Learned a lot of law right just then. Okay, so after that, what happens?
With Elian?
No, we know that, but your legal world.
Okay, so anyway, I was a lawyer traveling the South Florida area, trial lawyer. And, I had learned to be a lawyer in the U.S. Department of Justice. I would always have the cases that I thought were right. And I would stand up and say Spencer Eig for the United States with a lot of pride. But then as a private practitioner, I was mostly hired by people who had some beef with the United States government. And so they might have done something wrong, something sleazy, I don't know, different things, different cases, not always bad. And then they would hire me and I would become the spokesmodel for whatever it was that they had done. And for attorneys, most attorneys, that's normal.
Right.
I wasn't used to it, having spent 12 years in the U.S. Department of Justice. I wanted to call them like I see them. I wanted to play it from the heart and play it straight and not be for hire. And so that's when I decided I wanted to be a judge.
Okay, so you want to become a judge. There's an opening. You apply.
Yes.
You get appointed by, what year was that?
So this is in 2005. And the process is that one applies with all the different lawyers that want the vacancy apply.
20 or 30 of them apply.
Probably. And there's a committee called the Judicial Nominating Commission of attorneys and community members who screen the applicants to see who's best qualified. Then they send the 6 names up to the governor, and the governor chooses which one he or she wants to appoint.
Did you know him at all?
No, I didn't know.
He we all know who he is, but then he raised his children in Pinecrest. I knew what house it was. It was like he was living a normal life before he became governor. I'm a big fan of Jeb Bush. I didn't agree about choice. Okay, give me my thing. I didn't agree on what he was doing with choice, but he was a visionary. So he was pretty incredible. When I see him, I just thanked him for what he did for our community. Not Miami, all Florida. Was a hell of a governor. All right, so he appoints you. That's 2005, you said, right?
2005.
Okay, so were you county or circuit when he appointed?
Circuit. I didn't have an appetite for the smaller cases, so I went straight into circuit.
All right, so circuit is every 6 years.
Every 6 years is the term.
All right, so 6 years passed, you're up for election.
No, had to run for election first time in 2 years afterwards.
Oh, because
at
you
the end.
appointed. Whose seat did you take?
Ron Friedman was his name, a judge from way back
Sure, and his brother was Milton.
Yeah, I think that's his father, no?
Father. Wow, yeah, that's how old I am. I get them all confused. Right, his father. So you become judge. So let's talk. I know we can't talk about particular cases. What was the load like? That was 20 years ago. How many cases did you hear in a day or a week? Do you remember that?
Well, at the beginning, I was in juvenile dependency court, cases of abused and neglected children. So I was appointed in November. So basically, I didn't have cases for a month. They were training me. And then all the other judges went off on Christmas vacation and left me over there. And so this is not like talking about a case, but the very first case that I had was Daddy kills Mommy in front of the children under the Christmas tree.
What city was that in? I know it was in Dade County.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But
I remember that case.
I had the child.
It was on Christmas Day.
Yeah, on Christmas Day. I had not the criminal portion of punishing the murderer. I had the taking care of the children who were from Guatemala and who did not have any relatives here in the community, and finding places for them, taking care of them, helping them get back to their homes.
Wow. All right. So
yeah, that was intense. That's probably the most intense case I've ever had. That was the first one.
Yeah, because it's first you're a judge, you have to follow the law, but you're human, and it's tough because what's the law?
Yeah, I mean, this was more of a human situation.
Yes.
Nobody was standing in their way, but getting things done on Christmas, getting children placed, getting children taken care of, getting them the medical and counseling that they needed right away. It was tough.
Okay, so you go from that court, and then how many years later were you in the bigger courts?
So I was there for a while, and I would say that was maybe still my favorite, because for those cases, the situation for the children is bad when they come in. But we have a lot of resources in the county and in the state to do good for them and to improve their lives. Sometimes in like family court cases, it's a downward trajectory. The parents are fighting the parents, and we don't have resources for that. It's a private situation,
right?
And we really can't help the children. Even though best interest of the children is the legal standard, if we don't have any tools, any resources to improve the situation, then it's out of the court's control.
That's emotional time of your life in those courts. You could change kids' lives right there, or save their life.
You can. In fact, sometimes there are these hard decisions that will affect generations. It will impact generations of these children, their descendants, and how the decision plays out may not be known for 30 to 50 years.
Wow. Okay, so you did that, and then what division did you go in after that?
Oh, after that I did criminal, family, probate, civil division a few times. I've done every division in the court.
So you've been a sitting judge 20 plus years.
Yes.
Then you work for the United States government
Before.
for 4 years.
No, for 12 years
right.
before.
So you have 30, almost 40 years. I don't know how old you are. You have 30 plus years in experience.
For sure.
You know, and that's the most important thing that we need. We need judges to have experience of life and understanding. You know, and we don't, there's no learning curve anymore. We have to have people up and running in our judicial system, make sure that cases are heard properly. Is your happy times in any of your court cases? You feel like I don't need to know the case, but you just like, this was a great trial for the kids or for the adults?
So much of the time, things work out positively. You know, one of the things that a judge can do is set up the situation so that the parties will compromise. The parents, if it's a child custody case, the bank and the borrower, if it's a mortgage foreclosure. There's plenty of ways to tee up a win-win solution in many kind of cases. You know, across the board, like 90% of cases of all kinds resolve in a settlement. The judge has to maybe pull some fangs out of the lawyers
who are getting paid
to fight and make them slow down and talk. They used to talk to each other all the time in the courthouse, but now a lot of the hearings are on Zoom.
Do you have a lot of Zoom meetings?
We have a lot of Zoom. I tried to have a lot of live, but the attorneys were kicking and screaming.
Well, because they save 1 hour driving each way, they get but the advantage of in person, you can feel it. Correct?
You can feel it. People act towards each other as human beings. In person. Right. I mean, it's real.
Who decides that? Does the lawyers decide that, or does the judge decide it?
The lawyers generally decide. At least in the court that I'm in now, the majority of hearings are short. So if the hearings are only 15 minutes long, then we don't, you know, since the pandemic, people got used to going on Zoom. Sometimes we would schedule live hearings, and then we would, you know, their pants wouldn't close when they tried to get up that morning to come to court, so they had to cancel.
I try to picture that. Okay, let's get off the judgeship for a minute. Just give me some of your hobbies.
Okay, well, I have 4 wonderful children in their 20s, and the biggest change in my life recently is that they've grown up, and I'm not parenting every day like I used to. It used to be that I would start at 6:30 in the morning, making breakfast, lunches, taking kids to school.
Where did your kids go to school? Where did they go to school?
They all graduated from Beach High. They went to different middle schools and elementary schools, sometimes 4 different schools.
God, I love it.
It was crazy.
And this is when you're a judge.
Yeah, this was when I was a judge. This was when I was a lawyer and a judge. And so that was the biggest part of my life. Now they're all in their 20s.
In college?
One is engaged.
Are they done with college yet?
Yeah, one is finishing his Miami-Dade, the youngest. The second youngest is a nurse. She went to UCF. And
what a great career that is.
What a great career.
You know, these traveling nurses, they make so much money, and they house them because some of these communities don't have nurses. They house you, and they pay you off the scale. Okay, so she's a nurse. Is she practicing anywhere?
She's practicing, you know.
Private practice or in the hospital?
No, she's at a hospital. She's a maternity, a labor and delivery nurse. I put her on the path. I have to say, I saw it when she was about 7 years old. I had like a broken finger, and she splinted it for me with a Lego and wrapped it up so nice with tape. And I knew from that moment that was her destiny. My friends asked me if that was Obamacare. And but when she went to college, she did not major in nursing. And I really bribed her with a new car when she was disappointed with her accounting degree, her accounting studies. And I said, because that's not the environment for you. You need action. You need the hospital.
So she's in a hospital, OB nurse. Most nurses know more about their patient than most doctors. Okay, so that's 2. The third one?
He is a vintage furniture and antiques dealer. He's here in Miami after returning from corporate America out there, and he worked for the Honeywell Corporation for a while. But now he's got his antiques business, King Retro Vintage.
Wow. Okay, and the last one?
And she works for JM Family, that big auto dealer here in the state of Florida. And she's engaged, and she's found a wonderful young man. So we're getting ready for that wedding. But the other 3 are available, ladies and gentlemen.
Touche. This is matchmaker. Well, it's my pleasure to have you here, Judge. And I thank you for what you've done. And what's your punch number? Do you know it?
My number is 131.
131. All right. You can start voting today.
Yes, early voting starts today. It goes until the 15th, and August 18th is election day in the precincts.
All right, everybody, make sure you go out and vote. Grant Miller here with Judge Spencer. Everybody have a great day.